And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. It's Tom, Erika, and Josh. We got a great show planned for you guys today. We're talking Elon. We're talking tariffs. We're talking Diocese of Charlotte. We got a lot of emails about that. We're going to be addressing that. And have we culturally stagnated? I saw a video that's I have not stopped thinking about for about a week. So we're going to be covering all of those and more today. But before we get into that, how are we feeling, guys?
It's Friday. I'm pumped.
It's a beautiful day.
It is. Hey, it's been 1 week since we were all together in Nashville, and still riding high on those fumes. That was a great time.
Lots of fun. Happy feast day of St. Joan of Arc.
Yes, one of my favorites.
For all girl boss Catholic
every young Catholic girl in high school goes through a Joan of Arc phase, right? I mean,
for sure.
She's so boss.
I don't think you left it though.
I never left it.
Yeah, right. Still there.
All but mighty, Erika Ahern.
Absolutely. So yeah, warm welcome to everyone joining us here live. We do this 11 a.m. Eastern time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday on YouTube. So if you want to come out, check it out. It's a lot of fun. But I say we get right into it. Elon is out at DOGE. So specifically from his Twitter account, we have, as my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Donald Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The DOGE mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. That is the hope, of course. Mm-hmm. And yes, for people that have been going around saying he got fired, no, he was a GSE or SGE special government employee that allowed him 130 days per year. But towards the end, there were definitely some signs that he was getting put in front of the spotlight a lot less. Donald Trump was talking about him a lot less. And then we get the big, beautiful bill that he wasn't a huge fan of, that he went and criticized. So, I mean, I get it. From his perspective, it seems easier to put a man on the moon than it is to cut a couple $2 billion in spending from the federal government. So, that should be quite the warning shot.
One of those happened, one of them won't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and all of these got me thinking. And Donald Trump, of course, on True Social said having a press conference tomorrow, 1:30, that would be today, with Elon Musk at the Oval Office. This will be his last day, but not really, because he will always be with us, helping along the way. Elon is terrific. See you tomorrow in the White House. So DOGE will continue, but Elon has to get back to his businesses. I think he runs 3 of them. But man, 128 days, what a wild ride. I don't think.
Yeah.
I just think from my perspective, I've never seen anything quite like it in my lifetime. Maybe you have more perspective than I do, but yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, and before we evaluate DOGE and was it effective? Was it not? Will it continue? Will it now fail, without its figurehead, Elon Musk? You do have to hand it to the guy. I mean, this is the richest man in the world. He's an immigrant to the United States. He literally has it all except Jesus, which could come in the future, and then he would have it all. So
there's a lot of kids.
But he put it all on the line. He put himself out there as this target of liberal leftist ire. He didn't have to do any of that. And it seems to be because he really believed in what he was doing. And he really believes in the need to get government back on the right track, get back to a constitutional order as intended by the framers. He didn't get anything out of this, right? In fact, he's materially more poor now than he was 130 days ago, or when he started campaigning with Trump in July. So you got to just hand it to him. The guy has guts. He has the cojones. And whatever you think of him and how effective he was, kudos to Elon Musk. I just want to put that out there before we dig into effectiveness.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Josh?
I mean, he went through the cycle that sort of all conservatives do, where you get really angry about politics. You get involved, you roll up your sleeves, you fight to try to campaign for the guy you like. Right. You're euphoric after the victory. You get all these great ideas and plans, and then you get disappointed. And
nothing happens.
Of course, Elon Musk just does it in 5 months. It takes the rest of us a year or two before we get the full cycle. But he's a billionaire. He's got things to do, so he's got
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I wasn't fired, but you kind of were. He was dragging Trump's numbers there a few weeks back, and so they kind of told him to shut up, and he didn't say as much for the last few weeks, and they just kind of let it drift away. And that's probably all to the best. Now, there's some conservatives upset that the reconciliation bill didn't include the DOGE cuts, but those were. I'm getting from what Stephen Miller said, a lot of those DOGE cuts you could not actually enact through the reconciliation bill. You need to do it through the regular appropriations process. I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah,
we still. I mean, I like the reconciliation bill. I've been a big fan of it because it's trying to defund Planned Parenthood, expand school choice. We'll see if those provisions will all get through the parliamentary process in the Senate. They have to prove that they actually have economic budget impact and not just a policy. You couldn't just change, throw a law in there. It has to all be budgetary impact. So we'll see. But I still want to say when it comes to the budget bill, this is probably the best we could have got with 218 votes, 215 votes. But we still have a reckoning, folks. We still need to reduce spending on.
Yeah, let me press a little bit, and I think this kind of factors into the DOGE conversation, and what I put in the title here was DOGE effective? I think grand plans. Elon came out. I think the first thing that Elon and Vivek said was $2 trillion waste, fraud, and abuse. They brought it back down to $1 trillion wasted, fraud, and abuse, and they claim now on the DOGE site $175 billion saved. I will temper that with a BBC analysis, which of course is going to be the other side, saying that they only had 61.5 billion of that, only 32.5 of documented evidence. I actually don't think this is a tough thing to really quantify, because a lot of it is canceled contracts that would have spent money, as opposed to money out the door that just got cut and then brought back in. So there's impoundment involved in all this. It's not as simple as saying, okay, we only itemized this much. Like, it could have broader impacts on the road. So I almost think that's not the right area to look in terms of effectiveness. Of course, 1 trillion, a crazy estimate. I think I look at effectiveness, though, if I could, Josh, real quick, specific cuts of target areas, I think philosophically speaking, were completely revolutionary. I think targeting USAID and foreign aid was something that's never been done before, and revealed to the public how ridiculous and wasteful and actually damaging to American interests our own taxpayer money was being spent abroad. I'll never forget him going and basically punching the biggest bully in the block in that first week. It was total shock and awe. Public broadcasting, IT contracts. But I think, and this is what I want to ask you about, Josh, is the GOP was reluctant to even pass a 9.3 billion package of DOGE cuts. And maybe I'm not sure exactly how this should work, but, I was listening to Ron Johnson, of course, who voted against this big, beautiful bill. And
no, it hasn't come to the Senate yet, but he's
right.
warned.
But he might, but he's been really digging in the heels as someone who's supportive broadly of what Trump is doing, but has major reservations about what's happening. And just for the public, I went and listened to what he had to say. From 2005 to 2019, federal spending grew from 2.47 trillion to 4.45 trillion. That's over 14 years. So in numbers, roughly 80%. From 2019 to 2025, spending rose from 4.45 trillion to $7 trillion in just 6 years. That's a 57% increase. And what Ron Johnson is saying is, hey, we should do something very simple and common sense here. We should return to pre-pandemic spending levels. It's what we did in World War II, when spending rose to a significant point of the GDP and then came right back down to where it was before. This is no brainer. We have Republicans in Congress. This is actually necessary for the health of our country, as spending, I think most of us look around, is completely out of control. DOGE, I think, noble effort, but really, again, it's not going to be able to touch entitlements. It's not going to be able to codify anything. Congress has to do that. And it's looking at the executive level, what we can change. But now it's like we get this big, beautiful bill. And I think a lot of, very well-intentioned people are looking at it like, how is it possible we're still spending so much money here and not returning to pre-pandemic levels? So what would you say to that, Josh, for someone to ask that question?
Well, you're right that the reconciliation bill, the big, beautiful bill, can't touch Social Security. It can do Medicaid, so it can do some entitlement spending stuff.
And specifically, it's just changing the requirements for entitled spending. So you have to get a job, that kind of thing. It can't just like, okay, we're not going to pay these people.
No, of course. Tighten it up. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we're facing a situation where in a couple of years, we're going to have to refinance, $7 trillion worth of debt, and it's going to be at a much higher rate if we don't turn this ship around. And the hope was that, if the economy starts doing well, that the cost of the treasuries would go down a little bit, and they haven't gone down. They've been stubborn, and so the bond markets, as our friend Steve Cortez, who works here at Catholic Vote, says, they're 100%. Like, they don't miss. It's not like, you got the collective wisdom. A lot of people invest their own money, and they're saying, yeah, I just, you're going to have to pay me higher if I'm going to invest in you, because I trust I can do gold, I can do crypto. Why am I going with you? And so the U.S. Treasuries, in order to get people to buy these Treasury notes to finance our debt, then it's going to be at an elevated rate here in a couple of years, and that's going to be a big problem. So we need to fix things. If I were Trump, I would say, this is what I would do. I would say Elon Musk did a thankless task. He highlighted a lot of the excess of our government spending, but there's a limit to what a president can do in terms of, I can stop a few checks here and there, but ultimately I need more tools. And I call on Congress to pass a line item veto to give the presidency the opportunity to go through these fat 1,800-page budgets and to strip the funding out of it. And if Congress doesn't like my line item veto, you can always reinstate any of those cuts with a 2/3 vote. Let's make it happen. I think that would be extremely popular. And if he called for that, will Congress pass it? Probably not. But, he could always say, look, you didn't give me the tools necessary. You wouldn't let me do the DOGE stuff. You wouldn't let me just, because if Congress says no on the line item veto, then you can make your case for impoundment even more so. Like, what I need the tools. Congress has shown it has no responsibility. Everyone, has to think about, well, I need to, you have 435 members of Congress that need to bring the pork back for their districts. There's no incentive to cut, spending. So
even just as a casual observer too, and real quick, Erika, it is crazy to me just looking constitutionally at our order here, how much attention is on the Trump administration, so the executive, and the judicial right now. It's almost all executive and all judicial, right? It's like Trump does something and then some judge somewhere blocks it. And is Congress hiding here? I don't understand why. Is that an intentional move for them to hide? Is it an intentional move for them to not be doing their job, passing laws, things like that? Like what is going on here?
I mean, we talk about this all the time. It's the inversion of the constitutional order, right? Article 1 is Congress. They should be they're the ones that we directly elect. They represent the smallest number of people. Like, they should be passing laws. They are in charge of the budget. I was just reading up on tariffs because that's a fun thing to do over breakfast with the baby. And it was looking at they were talking about the rise of tariffs from Alexander Hamilton and like the use of tariffs, the War of 1812, and then the rise of industrialization in the North. And the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, why is this so weird? Why does this feel strange to me? And it was because all the decisions were being made by Congress at that point. Up until the Civil War, it's like, and Congress said this, and Congress fought over this budget, and Congress did this with the tariff, and I'm like, oh, because I haven't heard of Congress since the Civil War. Like, come on, guys, pull it together. But it's like, I don't know if it's like laziness or that we've had this progressive movement for the last, 100 years of the United States where the executive branch has been like, oh, we need to be ruled by experts. Well, isn't the executive branch great for that? And then the judiciary is like, hey, we're good at that too, and we're unelected, and they take that over. Anyway, it's the complete inversion of the constitutional order, and we're watching it in real time. It is so frustrating to see that. So I don't know, Josh, if you want to.
Part of it is that, we've created a situation where we've eliminated in both the House and the Senate the ability for people to make amendments in an effective manner.
Yeah.
And so basically they put the bill together, this ugly behemoth bill full of all the different stuff in it, because they've all decided. They've decided this. Our members of Congress have decided that it's easier just to say, let's have one big crappy bill and we either vote for it or we vote against it. And you're like, well, why not allow it to be amended so you can improve it? Because that's the last thing these guys want. They don't want these embarrassing votes where, like the minority, the Democrats could say, oh, why don't we do this? And the Republicans like, oh, geez.
They have to say,
I don't want to have to vote on that and say no, because then I'm going to go back and campaign 2 years from now, and it's going to be on a TV ad.
Right.
And so we've created this situation where these representatives have said they're afraid to it. And part of it is our own fault. Because then if we nitpick every last little vote and say, well, this guy on this one vote, this one time was terrible. And I get it. Like I want to call attention to certain votes, certainly. But then it makes them risk averse. And they're like, I would just rather have one big fat bill.
Yeah, it's
I voted for it. And then the bad parts in it, I go, yeah, I hated the bad parts, but I like the other parts.
It's sloth and safety. And I think too, what was the line Elon had? This was actually in one of his exit interviews, he goes on, and he had a really cool line, I thought. He's like, well, a bill can be big or beautiful. I don't think it can be both. And I actually was like, I think he's right.
Yeah.
It's big and it's not that beautiful. It has beautiful parts to it, as Josh pointed out. We're in support of this. Do I think it was, if politics is the art of the possible, is the big bill what was possible right now? Well, it was 214 to 215, so seems like we just slid under exactly what was possible there. But was it beautiful? And
Elon is such an interesting case because
he's fascinating.
you know, whatever you want to say about him, the antics, the salutes, the jumping on stage, being a
the
little bit
15
annoying
children from different women, and
right,
the
like
IVF.
and I honestly think, like, I know DC well enough at this point. I think he just rubbed enough people the wrong way. Like, he was just annoying behind closed doors for them to be like, all right, you're on, or you're hurting my poll numbers. You're on your way out, right? It kind of became a big target by all admission, like his own fault, right?
He drew a lot of fire away from Trump, I think.
Vivek,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that he was annoying.
Yeah, like he calls the governor of Ohio. It's like, hey, now that JD Vance is leaving a Senate seat and being vice president, you could put Vivek Ramaswamy in that Senate seat. And Governor Mike DeWine's like, and then halfway through the conversation, Elon Musk just lets the cat out of the bag. He's like, yeah, because I'd like to get rid of him because he's annoying.
Yeah. Impossible to deny, though, that he is the most successful businessman probably of my lifetime. And in terms of it's not like he just created a widget too. Like, he sends people to space. He by all marks is more effective and efficient than NASA.
But he did not send Katy Perry to space.
No, he didn't send. No, that's more of a Bezos thing. But
well, I don't know. Bezos is also. I mean, we rip on him for that Katy Perry stuff. But Amazon, I mean, I'm not singing his praises, but it's a pretty remarkable thing that, I mean, he just man decimated an entire industry. It turned it on its head.
No doubt, him and Elon are probably 1A, 1B, or however you want to place him.
Yeah.
But for him to, I guess what's interesting about all this to me is it's so funny when everyone got all mad about a billionaire having control over Congress, right? Because for the last 4 years, we don't even know who the heck was running the country or pulling the strings. And there's plenty of billionaires in that orbit. They just weren't as public. They just weren't as outrageous. And like, even the concept of DOGE was just retrofitting something Obama made in 2014. And they're like, okay, yep, we know the way around that. So I guess it's disappointing in some ways that someone clearly with so much success and optimism was unable in 5 months to make. I think he did philosophically contribute, and I think he will be an advisor going forward. But I think the promises were high and wasn't really able to deliver. I don't even know if through his own fault, maybe not, but I think it's a real kind of wake up call.
Wait, the swamp won again? So
yeah, exactly. But this time, of course, like every time, feels different. One thing I wanted to talk about in terms of constitutional order. So these tariffs, right? So I feel like we're playing tariff whack-a-mole at this point. So the U.S. Court of International Trade issued an injunction on Wednesday night ruling that President Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs are illegal. It's a 3-judge panel. All 3 were in agreement. They issued this injunction. The White House filed a motion to stay the ruling, and the tariffs were reinstated Thursday afternoon upon appeal. So a higher court basically was like, okay, no, we got to keep this in place as we keep taking a look on it. A lot of this hinges around these International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which was written by Congress to give the president control over, but he needs to prove basically unusual and extraordinary threats to U.S. national security, foreign policy, or the economy. Trump is saying, yes, like, I have this is a huge problem. These deficits are.
He ultimately is going to win this.
So, okay, so you think he's going to win?
Yeah, I mean, again, I like the libertarians online. They're like, hello, it's the Congress. The Constitution gives Congress the power for taxes and tariffs. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not an idiot. You also delegated this power to the president of the United States. So, I mean, it is, so long as it's for, emergency reasons. And it's not that hard to prove an emergency thing. Oh my gosh, slave labor in China, blah, blah, blah. Simple.
Right.
I mean,
Obama pointed to that.
I can't imagine this Supreme Court would say, whether or not we think it's a good idea to enact this or not. It's going to, I think it passes pretty easily.
Yeah, the thing that drives me crazy is just the delay and the obfuscation and the waste, because we are all paying for these battles that go on between the branches of government, like, because the Trump administration has to challenge it, and then you have to wait, and then you have to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And I know we had a win there this morning in terms of, can Trump deport illegal immigrants? But it's the delay and I don't know.
Well, How about this? I don't mind that we're having these legal fights to make sure that things are done properly, because even in the Trump administration, they've done so many things in these last few months that I support, but sometimes they do things sloppy. It looks like this thing that came out from the Department of Health and Human Services used like bunk AI stuff to do a report. I haven't read the rest of this, but it's like, what's going on here? So like, they're not immaculate. Okay. So they're going to make some mistakes along the way. I don't have a problem with, like pressing the case. I don't think we should have nationwide injunctions by district judges, period. I think it should only be done. The Supreme Court's got to rein this in, or there's going to be hell to pay. If the U.S. district, if the circuit court wants to do that, there's like 10 or 12 across the country. They cover like 7 states or some at a time. And if they wanted to declare a nationwide injunction, I'm okay with that. But the idea that the President of the United States, with executive power granted by the United States Constitution, would be somehow equivalent to whatever 670 district judges across the country, that's a bunch of crap.
Inferior courts.
Like absolutely crap. So the idea of a nationwide injunction, any district judge anywhere in the country can slap that on? No way, no how. That's baloney. However, that we would have these fights, like in my mind, if the district judge thought it was wrong, he could say, yes, this appears to be wrong. Let's argue this case and argue the case, but you don't get to put the brakes on it. It would have to be a higher court. It doesn't have to be the U.S. Supreme Court. It could just, again, be these circuit courts across the country that could put the brakes on it. But, the whole point, I've always had so much frustration over the years, is that it was always one-sided. It was always, we'd enact some law or legislation, or some president would do something we like, and immediately a liberal would slap on get a judge to slap on a nationwide injunction and stop it dead in its tracks. They would not even allow the law to begin to take place. So that's why I'm happy to hear about, like even in this case where they thought, well, we don't think these tariffs are constitutional. At least the higher court said, hold on a second. We're going to go ahead and allow these tariffs to remain in effect while we adjudicate it, because there's nothing, it's not immoral to allow these policies to continue. It's just a question of whether or not emergency standard has been met.
Yeah. It's also procedural. 100%. And it's like, this is the kind of stuff that grinds people out of politics too. This is even from our perspective, it's like, I voted for President Trump to go in and change. And when he changes, it's like all these people I didn't elect being like, nope, you can't do that.
Yeah. So Josh, I guess I'd ask you, so Molly Hemingway yesterday at the press conference at the White House, she posed to Carolyn Leavitt the question, what is the Trump administration's strategy? Because you have multiple rogue judges making multiple injunctions and rulings without any, so you end up with this sort of like whack-a-mole thing. I think you used the term, Tom. So we had I was just writing down. So last week we had another district court judge said Trump administration has to continue to allow immigrants to remain under the parole program. Another one halted the administration from making any permanent changes to the Harvard student visa program. Another had another injunction saying that he can't stop accepting foreigners. So the student visa thing for Marco Rubio is on hold. So the question that Molly Hemingway posed to Carolyn Leavitt was, what is the Trump administration's strategy for dealing with rogue judges? Is it just to fight every single one all the way up to the Supreme Court and wait? Is it waiting for the Supreme Court to make the ruling on the injunction, the nationwide injunctions, and hope that one wipes out all of these rogue judges' injunctions? Are we just sitting and waiting for the judiciary to correct itself? Basically, is that the only recourse that the Trump administration has right now?
Yeah, because there's not really a remedy that Trump himself can do other than ignoring the court's ruling, and that would make everyone just lay an egg. I mean, so far the Supreme Court has, taken a little bit of time, but they're making some progress. The ruling that came down just about an hour before we started recording this, the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration can start deporting approximately 500,000 migrants who are part of Biden's ridiculous parole program. These are involving people from Venezuela and some other countries, not just Venezuela though, Nicaragua, I think some of the others. But ultimately, there's the President of the United States has no authority to try to change what a district judge's prerogatives or authority is. Congress can change that, although there's no way you're going to get 60 people in the Senate to do that. The Supreme Court has the authority as well. And if this is what has been driving Justices Thomas and Alito bat crazy. They've been telling their colleagues, we've got to do something about this. And again, I think John Roberts is like this guy who is just like, he's so careful. Like, we don't want the court to be seen as taking sides in favor. And, dude, I mean, you're splitting hairs so perfect. It's insane,
Mm-hmm.
And so he just needs to buckle up, Buttercup, and put the brakes on this stuff, because if you don't, I worry what would happen for a country. It's one of those things where you need to stop these nationwide injunctions by 600 some different district judges. They should not have this authority. Even when I said this clearly, even during the Biden administration, when I'm like, hey, I'm happy that this is being slapped down and stopped, but I don't think district judges should have this authority.
Either way.
And in fact, it was struck down. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. On to the good news now. Erika, I saw you had a good one.
Oh, yeah. I had some great news. This is really cool. I met an amazing couple yesterday, and they had a really cool story. Now, this is old news. This happened 10 years ago, but I wanted to just play this clip from the local news covering this incredible miracle that happened.
Well, a Baker City family says,
and then I have a surprise at the end.
Just 5 days after a near-death experience, their toddler is not only alive, but back home and perfectly healthy. KTVB's Dean Johnson traveled to Baker City to catch up with the family, the very relieved family, and he's here in the studio with more for us. Dean.
Cute kid.
Well, Dean, Matthew and Elsa Cunningham were certain that their toddler had drowned in their neighbor's pond. They found him blue and not breathing.
Hey, Mom.
22-month-old Maddie Cunningham is back at home this evening.
Shows almost no residual effect.
Just 5 days ago, Maddie's parents, Matthew and Elsa Cunningham, were certain their toddler had died.
He was blue and lifeless.
Unresponsive.
Last Thursday, the Cunninghams were working outside of their Baker City home when they noticed that Maddie was missing.
The panic ensued.
After a frantic search, family members were able to find him face down in their neighbor's pond.
Dove in and grabbed him and handed him to Matt, and then started chest compressions.
The family searching and praying for any sign of life. Now, no one knows how long Maddie had been under the water, but the family was certain that he had drowned.
There was no movement in his limbs. He looked like he'd been there all winter.
When paramedics arrived, just minutes later, the Cunninghams got an answer to their prayers.
They did detect a bit of a heartbeat there at the pond.
But it was faint, and Maddie still wasn't breathing. He was rushed to St. Alphonsus in Baker City and then airlifted to St. Al's in Boise.
His initial blood work was that of a dead baby.
The toddler was eventually taken to St. Luke's Children's Hospital, where he was heavily sedated. Once there, doctors performed an MRI to see the extent of brain damage.
Two things go through your mind. Either it's terrible and they can't find the strength to tell us, or they can't believe the results.
Maddie's MRI came back perfectly normal.
It's a miracle in the sense that there's no scientific or natural explanation. There had to be a divine intervention.
Intervention, the Cunninghams say, came from one particular person.
Well, we know it's more than somebody. It's the one true God.
Yeah.
And we just...
Well, we were praying.
A prayer, the Cunninghams say, was answered. Now the Cunninghams...
So you met these guys?
So I did. I got to meet these guys yesterday. It was over a Zoom meeting, and it was for, well, actually, I'll roll it more on that later next week, little teaser. But the part of the story that the local news did not report. So the family said, yes, you can come, you can film us, you can interview us about what happened to our son. Today he is a healthy elementary school student. He's very, all that. So you can come and interview us, but you have to say that we give glory to God. What the TV crew did not say, though, was when it says they credit this to one person in particular and then they cut to God, they actually were praying to Venerable Fulton Sheen to save their son. And it was the prayers to Fulton Sheen for interceding for their son that actually brought about the miracle. So that is Miracle Baby, to one of our LOOPcast favorites. I just thought that was such a great story.
Does he have
some good news?
Does he have enough for like miracles attributed to him at this point?
He does. We have miracles. They are all over there. But you know what? Peoria and New York decided to have a little war over where the body should be. And so we can't have a beatification. So my solution for Fulton Sheen is to do the Catherine of Siena move. You just take the head, put it in Peoria, take the rest of the body, leave it at St. Patrick's in New York. Like Catherine of Siena's body is in Rome. Her head is in Siena. And everyone's happy.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
I would have
Figure it
done the
out.
opposite, though, because, his heart should be where he was in Illinois,
His
Oh
heart
my
should be
gosh.
in Illinois.
That was
beautiful.
actually John Paul's request, that his heart be removed from his body and returned to Poland because his heart was in Poland.
Oh,
It
man,
was
that's
denied,
actually really
but-
no
cute.
can do. No can do.
I would have.
Well, he wanted it. I mean, he's
I
the
would have
saint.
abided by that request.
Okay, this is come again. I'm getting a hard time for producer Rosie here, as if this is somehow common knowledge. I didn't know we chop up our saints to get them to become saints.
Well, not to get them to become saints, but just to
Basically.
share the wealth, man. It's to share the wealth.
I guess. I don't know. I didn't know this was a common thing.
I don't know. Well,
She's
it's a
giving me such a
medieval
hard
thing.
time right now. I'm like, this is like where we got Russia
You got
from.
like Francis Xavier's arm is in Rome, but the rest of him's in India, and you got like all kinds of stuff, right? Somebody's tongue is somewhere else too. I forget who that is. Somebody can tell me in the
Anthony.
chat. Oh, thank you. Yeah, Anthony's tongue.
Who's
Oh,
giving me-
hi. Wow.
Where
I'm
are we
like,
doing this?
what's going on, Pogo? There you
Oh,
go. Whoa.
Rosie's doing that. She's just trying to mess
She's
with me.
messing with
She's
you.
so mad I didn't know this. Okay. Great news.
Thank you.
Beautiful family. Okay, Josh.
I mean, there's no way going to top that good news, but there is some good news. You have to remember, of course, under the Biden administration, the Defense Department was hosting drag shows on our military bases. What is what is the Trump administration's Defense Department doing? They're supporting homeschool families.
Yay.
The Secretary of Defense has ordered a review of the department's support for homeschooling military families to make sure they have enough resources for them to do homeschooling of their families.
Wow.
I think this is awesome news.
That is awesome news.
Again, not a military guy, didn't grow up in a military family, but I did know some people that would move to my school or somewhere else that were military people. They travel all over the country. I imagine it's actually probably pretty beneficial. Homeschooling would be when you're in different countries or even around the country or something like that.
Because you get moved so many times, it can be hard because you make friends and then you lose them. And
right.
It's tough for military brats, as they're known as. It's tough.
What would this memorandum in terms of, I think I see expanding educational freedom and opportunity for families. Would it be reviewing it to give them more money, to give them more resources for,
it's calling for a review on all this. I mean, it's not necessarily calling for specific answers just yet, but it's setting this as let's review what's going on.
Yeah, state
find
of
out
play.
what the families
What's the
need
state of play?
and see what we can do to help meet those needs.
That's awesome. Much better than, hey, can we get men dressed as women sexual dances in front of kids? Like, I think the last 4 years was a total simulation. Like, none of that feels real. I feel like I just live in a completely different country and world.
It was real, Pogo.
Well, I mean, like the best part about this is, we talked about in the last episode, like how Democrats are trying to deal with this. And like some of the left-wing commentators, like, well, and voters thought that Kamala Harris supported, transgender surgeries on, migrants that were held illegally. Like, and they also thought she believed, these other radical things like, the voters believe that because she said it on tape.
It's on tape. Yeah.
They were
reciting this.
They couched that as they're like, she had a perception problem. People misunderstood her. I'm like, it was not a perception problem.
How do these people
sleep? It was a reception problem. We just thought your ideas were so bad.
Here's the radical thing. Like, if the Democrats don't make adjustments, like we saw this, the senator from Arizona, now the Democrat, Ruben Gallego, said he's against, boys playing in girls' sports now. Okay.
Yeah.
If more Democrats wake up, they can do successful in the midterms. The Democrats, by all stretch of the imagination, should do well as the party out of power. They should do well in the upcoming midterm elections next year. The question remains, though, have they learned anything? And if they haven't, they could be up for another surprise. And like, what happened?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I think I just saw a video of a boy in Minnesota crushing people in softball. I think he was pitching. And he's on his way to state tournament. There's someone in California now. And I think the Department of Justice have already launched investigations into this, which again, just no brainer, as there's been an executive order saying, hey, stop doing this. And so, where's the line?
I can't imagine this. I mean, like growing up in the 80s, if one of my friends or one of the guys were like, you know what? I think I'd do a lot better if I played against the girls on the softball team. We'd be like, What?
Yeah.
I mean, we would just beat the crap out of the guy.
Yeah, you
I
get
mean,
bullied, rightfully bullied for that take. Yeah.
I mean, you are an idiot. Like, what?
Social stigma has a place.
It does.
Well, it was twofold because it's the social stigma. Everyone was no one believed it, right? But everyone was terrified if you said something against it or you actually in social settings. And then there was the adults that enabled it, right? Like there was total activists that got in position of power and are just like, no, I'm crazy. I believe this. And yeah, we're going to do it. And it's going to be best for the kids. Obviously it's not. Everyone understands that. So I'm just curious how there's going to be some judge somewhere that's like, nope, you can't do this. You know what I mean? Of like to pull the federal funding. He's going to pull the federal.
Yeah,
I have a crystal ball here.
Yeah.
Here's my crystal ball. He's going to pull the federal funding, California, Minnesota, and some judge somewhere is like, nope, can't do that because of some obscure interpretation of the Constitution that I came up in my own backyard. And it's going to have to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And it's just like, it's so tiring. I'm like, how does Trump have the energy for this? It's just doing the right thing and then having to fight through the bureaucracy. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting audio from an old video. I have a good fun news. Pope Leo has hands, and hopefully this transfers to the Bears. There was everyone had different reactions to this. I will say, my instant reaction was, "Oh, this is cute." It's like, okay, this could be a legitimate security problem. Pope Leo caught a plushie doll of himself rolling through in the Pope Mobile, and great hands, great catch here. Very exciting.
Plushie doll.
Exciting for the Bears potentially, but. The new update to the story is that the POV has been released. So whoever threw it had a video going. That's awesome, man. Wait, let me share it.
Oh, he asked for it.
That's sick.
That's great.
Pope Leo's got hands.
Man, I am so glad I am not on his security team though.
Yeah, I would actually. That's a nightmare. Yeah. I feel like we got to. It was fun one time.
Visions of 1981 there.
Fun one time, but let's put the kibosh on Pope plushies going forward. I would not like to see that become a trend. It's like in Detroit they throw the octopus on the ice during.
What?
I mean, are you familiar with that?
What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. But
yeah, Detroit Red Wings.
Like a real octopus?
Yeah, real octopus. They bring real octopi to the games and throw them on the ice, and it's a thing.
I don't know why. In Detroit.
I actually don't know.
Ada loses their mind, I'm sure, over that.
Yeah. Oh, I think they hate it. But yeah, I wouldn't like that to become a trend. What are some other? There's some other trends of people throwing stuff that is like. It happens now, but I'm sure it's actively discouraged. I think people just know they're going to get kicked out if they throw the octopus, and they do it anyway. Anyway, total random segment. But this one I'm very excited for. I love this guy's account on Instagram. I want to say he's a writer. His name is Jason K. Pargin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And he has his brain is so interesting. His takes and stuff always get me going. So here's one that I've thought about a lot. Here we go.
People looked the same for the last 20 years. Like if you go back and watch the first episode of The Office, that was filmed in 2004.
Yep.
You don't look at them and say, oh my gosh, look at those hairstyles and those clothes. But if you went back to any previous decade, you would. Like 1970s guy is a Halloween costume you can get on Amazon right now with the bell bottoms and the perm. If a character showed up in a movie set in the 1980s dressed like that, you would think they were in a Halloween costume, and that's just 10 years later. And if you're going to say, well, yeah, but that's movies, that's not realistic, I am telling you, when I was growing up in the 1980s, I remember looking in a photo album of my parents from 10 years before, from the 1970s, and all of us just laughing our heads off at the outfits and the hair. And you can go by decade. If you ask somebody my age to visualize the 1950s, we will close our eyes and picture something like this. Then if you ask us to picture the 1960s, you will get something radically different. If you were to switch the two, they would look like they were on the wrong planet. I am, of course, not the first person to notice this. There's a viral Twitter thread just yesterday where they were looking at video footage from 2002 and saying that could have been shot yesterday, and pointing out that the only signifier of which era you're in is what kind of phones they're using and how big the monitors are on their desks. Is there any explanation for this?
It's so true. That's why Forrest Gump was such a fun movie when it came out, because every decade was so different. I like it.
I
can't stop thinking about this.
So what's your thesis, Pogo? is there any explanation?
Okay, I'm excited to talk about this amongst friends because Erika, I'm sure you had a sweet hairstyle back in the day, or were you always about the same?
No, I'm not a very trendy person.
Okay, so you were about the same. Josh, did you have hair at one point?
I was homeschooled.
Honestly, you have to think to yourself. I have basically looked like a college Republican since the time I was 8. So I'm going 40 years strong in this look, folks.
So funny. I mean, okay, so if
Okay.
some of my favorite pictures to look at are my mom in the 80s had humongous hair. Like there's a great picture of her with my great grandma, now deceased, rest in peace, beautiful soul. She is being enveloped by my mom's hair. Like, and she's just arm around her, normal distance, just my hair is just eating my great grandmother, who's the best, rest in peace. But yes, like yes, I look. So basically my answer is going to be yes and no here. And I'm curious like what the chat thinks on this or just people in the comments, because I cannot stop thinking about this. I'm going to say yes, there hasn't been as dramatic of a change from, I'd say, 2004 to 2025 as there would have been 60s,
This entire
70s,
century
80s.
so far, this 25 years, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are arguing back like, well, the early 1900s actually didn't have distinctions. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I could in my head think of the difference between the 20s and the 40s, or even the
flappers
10s.
in the 20s.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
the
Like,
aunts in the 20s. I mean, ankles.
totally. So, and then I will say, so yes, in some ways there has been, and then I will say no, because there are specific differences. There's a lot more fast fashion and synthetic material in circulation right now. I will also say dressing really poorly has been normalized since 2004 to 2025. Like, even if you think back, my dad was a
People look
teacher.
like slobs.
The absolute norm, everyone did it, was a full suit to be a teacher, or at least a coat and a tie. And that is just gone. So I will say like norms for professions have completely changed. Even if the clothes themselves, I will say the materials have changed. The cuts may not have.
If you wear because when I fly, I'll wear a sport coat usually, and people just like, is he a senator? Like, no, dude, I'm just not dressed like a slob. What are you?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like people wear pajamas in public. Like that would have been unthinkable in 2004, I think.
Only at Walmart.
So here's the theories.
Right.
Here's the theories. I do think the internet has a lot to do with this. The internet because the internet was actually invented, I think, in the 80s, but it hadn't reached like mainstream popularity and then global popularity until like the early 2000s. And so the theory that I tend to agree with the most is that it's much harder, ironically now, paradoxically, to enforce a shared mass culture than it was before, because there was a time where everyone was watching the same TV shows, everyone was reading the same magazines, and the people that produced those had much more power over what was influential. And then also the only place for you to go to get your advice on how to dress and how to act, decorum, was basically your parents, your peers in terms of classmates. That's about it. Like you couldn't just go on your phone now as you can.
I agree with the first half.
Yeah, television.
And then I think social media, because now there's so many different influences out there that like I could just go and Google if I wanted to dress a certain way or I wanted to have a certain hairstyle, I could go and Google that. But I think that even though there are more sources, there's more of a culture of trying to fit in and trying to not do anything too flashy, which some might say, well, there are people that are crazy on social media. I'll say, yes, I think that's true. But the overall influence of like wanting to look a certain way. Also interesting I was reading this article, is written in 2012 by Kurt Anderson. And he was saying, who's not a Trump guy, by the way, not politically. I agree with a lot of his takes, but it's funny. He was saying that Mitt Romney, it's like no one likes Mitt Romney, Republicans don't, because he's not authentic. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you're in for a treat with Trump, who, if nothing else, is authentic. But he basically was saying that the original yuppies were gays in the 80s because they were the original double income, no kids. So they had more money to spend on personal care, health, that kind of thing. And they kind of kickstarted a trend of actually spending a lot more energy and effort and time on your own appearance. And that still persists today, ironically, because style hasn't changed very much, but attention on personal style has changed a lot. So I'm not sure if that speaks to this mass culture. So if you think like the 50s and people wearing ties, white shirt, tie, like you didn't think as much, I guess, about like, oh, I need to stand out or I need to do this or that. You're just like, okay, I just will coalesce.
Okay, Tom, you need to let other people talk.
Okay,
I think
Okay,
if
Dad.
you think about it too,
All right.
I think in terms of music, like 50s music was so much more different than 60s music, which is so much different than 70s or
Music's
80s
definitely
music.
related, yeah.
And I think, by the way, 90s music, large part sucks. But I think we're so
I miss
like
the
in
90s.
Yeah, I somewhat disagree, but
there's songs that you know, only because you recognize it, but like, is there really that much of a difference of a song that came out in 95 as opposed to 2015? Like to me, there's even the music is sort of coasting along. So like with regards to fashion and music, I feel like it's just it's kind of in a rut. Like there's no creativity, no originality. And I think part of that is because I think we really need to appreciate in one aspect of American life, because the boomers, as much as we'd like to rag on them, think about their perspective as their generation. They're coming of age, like they're like 14 years old, 10 years old, whatever, as we land on the moon in 1969. And that sparks this whole, you know, space age and exploration. And we're like, wow, this is amazing. And we'll build these giant rockets. And then after a while, like sort of halfway through the 80s, not just the Challenger blowing up in 1986, but you're like, and what the hell else is there? It's not like you're going to go to colonize Mars now. And so like,
Wow.
as a civilization, you're just like, that's actually one of the things that Elon Musk's trying to talk about. Like, if we don't have some great idea, some vision for moving ahead, some exploration, some sort of cause, then we're just stuck looking at our phones all day, and we just end up with this bland originality. Everything's beige. And so I do think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, for sure. And I see it too. So you mentioned we've got the fashion, we have culture, also in terms of our stories, right? That our stories, I think, have stagnated culturally. So we just had this big story coming out of Hollywood. They're like, we are so back with the summer blockbusters. We just had the biggest summer blockbuster weekend since before COVID. This is amazing. What were the two blockbusters that did so well? We had a remake, a live action Lilo and Stitch, and we had Mission
Lilo and Stitch,
Impossible
right.
562. I mean, this was
Wow.
like just the same. Can I finish?
Yeah, Josh, it's time for you to stop talking now.
It's
Please.
Testy Friday here on LOOPcast. No, so I was going to say, I think that, and we've talked about this as well, with the remakes being sort of the stories coming out of Hollywood, out of our engine of entertainment, are remakes and adaptations and prequels and sequels, and the lack of creativity in that end as well. And I think, Josh, you're pointing to like the moon landing and kind of, okay, what is there to do from here? In the 60s, we also saw the invention of the pill. And what the pill did was it finally severed us from our bodies in some ways, and it paved the way for where is there to go once you have conquered the human body and fertility and reproduction and sexuality? What more is there to do? I think that most people in the West live very insulated lives, even from the major diseases. And the conquering through vaccines of measles, mumps, all of these childhood diseases, there's like, where do we go from here? And there is this kind of like, and so where we see the major upward sweep of progress has been in making the phones smaller, in writing the sequel to, Star Wars, in recycling the same old jeans. Like, we're back to the bell bottoms now. It's all recycle.
I mean, because actually what I was trying to get with exploration is this idea that the people who took that courageous, leap, but jumping in a boat and crossing the Atlantic to come to the United States, the New World, or trying to go to, again, the space race, going to the moon, all that kind of stuff. It's external. It's actually in a way legacy minded. Not just what you can do, but like trying to build a better future for your children and grandchildren. And we have too many people in this own country who are, it's an inward focus where they're like, well, I want to assemble a bucket list and see how many different, destinations I can visit before I die. And I'm like, really?
Bucket list?
Like that's what your life is about? I mean, like, who cares? Like, I mean,
because then you're dead.
Yeah. I mean, like, live for your, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like, I'm not trying to point fingers or whatever, but the last couple of generations, we've looked inwardly. It's about self-care. It's about what we can do, and living these experiences, as opposed to like, what about your family, your greater legacy there?
Don't
Like,
have one. Right. We just
All right,
don't know.
another thought.
All right.
Food for thought
Okay.
here. I think that because we get so much information now, more than ever, human history, all the time, and we have access to instant nostalgia, as I would say. Like, I can look up right now how someone looked in the 20s, but say you're in the 70s, unless you're in a library or something and you're seeing pictures, you can't in your pocket see, like, what did someone look like in the 20s? What was culture like then? And also, if you think about it, we're now living in the age of algorithms where things feed you what you want. So if I like 70s style or I like 70s music, like, people can
More
just
of it.
feed me that as much as possible. And so I think nothing genuinely feels new anymore. I don't know if you guys feel about this, but like, when a movie came out, from what I've been told, like Star Wars came out, whenever that came out, and people went and like, I could not even imagine someone thinking up this idea. Like, this is so crazy revolutionary. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a movie where I've been like, this is an insane idea. I can't believe someone came up with this. I'm just like, oh, this was clearly a remake of whatever, because I know about whatever. Whereas maybe most people would have even known because they don't have access. So I think there's something to, because people feel like nothing's new and they're getting bombarded with information and they can see literally anything they want to see at any time ever. I think there's like a numbness to it, and you want to feel something that's real. And so it almost has like a safety. You're like, okay, I think things were real in the 80s or in the 90s. Like, my parents did this. Or I even think of, like, someone's bringing up Alan Jackson, right? Like 90s country music. Like 90s country music, there's a feeling to that. Like, it feels real. Where I listen to, love Morgan Wallen, but like every song sounds the same for the most part. Or like, it's all hyper produced, whatever. This is before, like, you listen to music before things were individually recorded and then put together on a track. Like, bands just got in there, ripped a recording all together, and then that's what you ended up getting. And then maybe you get a record of it or whatever. So I think we're almost being numbed almost by the amount of information that we're getting. And therefore, because we have this overload, we haven't even had the space or time to think about what's next. And if I think about the 80s compared to the 70s, or the 70s compared to the 60s, they knew about the 60s, but they didn't know about, say, the 30s or the 40s or the 20s. So it's like, okay, we need to look forward and rebel against what happened here. And therefore, you create something basically brand new.
But we need more creativity. There's just no question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we're just in a consumption trap at some point. And I think this was written in 2012. I think it was very poignant. And this was before even 2025. And I feel like not much has changed since 2012 to now. But we seem to have trapped ourselves in a vicious cycle. Economic progress and innovation stagnated, except for in information technology, which leads us to embrace the past and turn the present into a pleasantly eclectic for-profit museum, which deprives the cultures of innovation of the fuel they need to conjure genuinely new ideas and forms, which deters radical change, reinforcing the economic and political stagnation. I've been a big believer in historical pendulum swings, American socio-political cycles that tend to last, according to historians, about 30 years. So maybe we are coming to the end of this cultural era of the same old, as the baby boomers who brought about the Ice Age. This Ice Age finally shuffle off. Maybe America and the rich world are on the verge of a cascade of wildly new and insanely great. Or maybe, I worry some days, this is the way Western civilization declines. Not with a bang, with a long nostalgic whimper. And then Trump came right after that. So, my boy was probably
Trump
pretty
came
shocked.
down the escalator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's pray.
Okay. But as we get to the next session, we had a lot of people emailing about this. Want to provide some clarity. So Charlotte Diocese, big decisions were made there by their bishop. Erika, I had you look into it. What's going on there?
Yeah, this is a tragic tale here. So Bishop Martin down in the Charlotte Diocese, he's been there just a year. In fact, I think yesterday was the anniversary, his 1-year anniversary of being installed the bishop. Last Friday, on May 23rd, he announced that the diocese would complete the implementation of Traditionis Custodes of No More Latin Mass fame by prohibiting the extraordinary form of the Mass celebrated from 4 parish churches in the diocese where it had been celebrated since 2021. And the previous bishop had received an extension from the Vatican in terms of implementing Traditionis Custodes for pastoral reasons. Martin blew that out of the water. He designated one soon to be built chapel. So he's going to spend $700,000 building a new chapel facility. Actually, it's a facility in Mooresville, North Carolina. And that will be the one place where the old form of the Mass can be celebrated in all of Western North Carolina. That was the sucker punch. And people are like, why? What's going on? And what for? Even worse, though, was when it was leaked to the public a set of talking points, a letter that had been sent to the priests over the weekend on how to explain to the faithful what was going on. And in the letter, I'll just read a couple of quotes from it. It explained that Pope Francis believed, quote, that allowing a more widespread celebration of the TLM was causing more division universally in the church. Another quote, while it is sad that some may leave the church, it appears that the direction Pope Francis required was implemented to cause less division over the longer term. Better that one man should die than the whole people be lost, I guess. Catholics aggrieved by the decision should, quote, if you feel sad about this, here's what you should do. Engage in some acts of penance and charity for the healing of the church. And that Catholics in the diocese should, quote, call on the Holy Spirit to purge our hearts of division and the anger it foments. So if you're feeling angry or sad,
classic abuser psychology,
you need to be purged.
Yeah.
And it's sad you might leave the church. So this was a letter sent to priests. It just has echoes, so many echoes of 1968. I think anyone over the age of 70 who is living down there right now and reading this stuff must just be like, it's 1968 again. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to begin. I think this is just, someone said, binding yourself to corpses. This is Bishop Martin failing utterly to read the signs of the times, failing utterly to smell like the sheep. There are people online writing essays begging him to come and visit these communities that he's affected, come and talk to them. And, you know, I went through here in New Haven, we went through a very difficult top-down decision from the Archdiocese here to remove the Dominican, the province of St. Joseph, from the Archdiocese. And it was very hard. And we had groups of people begging the bishop to come and speak to us and begging the bureaucracy to come and meet with the children, come and meet with the families. And it was just, it was radio silence. It was just, we're taking care of things. And they weren't. And I just feel that is here so much more. It's devastating for Catholics spiritually, and to be accused because you love things that are old of fomenting division and anger. Very, very painful. So my heart goes out to the people of the diocese. And then it gets worse.
Yeah, I was going to say, so this is unfortunately not new, which I do think it's crazy and divisive and it's not working. But restricting Latin Mass is not new. Even no matter how draconian or how little input you get from your parishioners, like, this is not new. But I felt like the overreach in terms of liturgical practice was new and shocking and unbelievable.
Yeah. It got even worse. So then Ravati Caeli, which is
not just about the Latin Mass,
Yeah,
No,
now it
it's
extends
deeper than this, yeah.
to the Novus Ordo. They obtained a draft of a letter, which was verified by the Pillar. So our guys over there, JD Flynn, Ed Condon, they verified this letter that had been drafted that would direct all liturgy in the diocese. And here are some of the elements of that. So now we're talking about the Novus Ordo. Quote, the faithful's full, conscious, and active participation is hindered wherever Latin is employed. So no more Latin Mass parts. Most of our faithful do not understand and will never comprehend the Latin language. All those poor stupid people in my
Holy
diocese.
airball, man.
Yeah, right.
Jeez.
I mean, hello. So basically, they no more Latin at the Novus Ordo. So you can't use your Latin Mass parts except in extremely solemn occasions, whatever that means. And it says, women who choose to veil as an expression of personal piety are not to do so when assisting in any official capacity, lecturing, cantoring, altar serving, or ushering at Mass. Most women who wear a veil are not going to be altar servers. I can pretty much guarantee you that. But to just target women like that, and it went on and on. Removal of the altar rails. Altar rails.
So the altar rails was if they are not installed, like stationary, say,
right,
as a church, they just.
But if they are permanently installed in the church, you are not to use them. You cannot do that. No more.
This cannot be the vision for bishop's involvement in liturgy, right? How could this possibly have been? And where's this been when we see legitimate, sacrilegious, blasphemous stuff going on? I mean, we've just let this slide for the last how many years, and now all of a sudden we want to go after people for historical, legitimate signs of reverence. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's stunning. And this is a massive, massive overreach. I mean, it's not an overreach because in a sense, the bishop has the authority to do this. He is the head pastor of his diocese. He can determine how the germ is to be implemented, how different papal documents are to be interpreted. But I think for me,
it's worth asking questions because we hear so often during Francis's pontificate that, we need to be a church that listens. We need to be synodal. We need to hear from the sheep. We have to smell like the sheep, on all these buzzwords, like, diversity is our strength. And, we don't have to be monolithic in order to be united. It's like, okay, so then like, how about these people really like the Latin Mass? Is that okay? And then people just absolutely lose their minds.
Right.
So basically you're telling every faithful Catholic in Charlotte, just drive into South Carolina, go to Rock Hill, go to some church there. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. Look, this bishop came just a year ago to this is Charlotte, North Carolina is not an ancestrally old Catholic city,
right?
Like Hartford or a Boston. I mean, it's a city that 40 years ago had very few Catholics at all. So it's a very young church. There's a lot of Catholics who are very excited about their faith, and this feels like a massive, massive wet blanket. Mm-hmm. I don't understand it. Now, at least he's had the foresight to put some of these things on hold for now, but I just don't understand it. Like, it has been the experience of so many Catholics in this country, and myself included, where people who say, gosh, I kind of would like to have a little bit more reverence in our celebrations. You would think that would be welcome.
Can we all agree on that? Right.
Why do we scold people that want more reverence? I just don't understand. I don't know. Come Holy Spirit. This is a total shock to me.
Yeah, there was There was a really moving essay in The Lamp magazine. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but you should check it out. It has really insight. Actually, J.D. Vance of Lamp fame.
Conversion story, yeah.
Really moving essay in there from a parishioner who lives out in the hollers of North Carolina. And she wrote, I hope with all my heart the Bishop Martin will see us for what we are, human beings with souls which have been blessed and offered immense comfort in bleak times by the Mass, including and even especially the traditional Latin Mass. We are his sheep, his flock, looking to him for love and kind guidance, for comfort, for mercy. And then she talks about what it's like to be a Catholic in North Carolina. Many of us are a tiny minority within our home counties. We are some of the most othered Catholics in the United States, frequently ostracized by the non-Catholics around us. Converts in this area often lose everyone in their lives when they choose to become Catholic. Our children are regularly informed by other children their age that they will go to hell if they die Catholic. While we have wonderful friends who love us in spite of our faith, we would hope our shepherd would not also be loving us in spite of our love for the church's sacred tradition. It was a really good essay. Again, check out the Lamp magazine for that. And pray for the people.
There was also a anonymous letter that went around. I can't remember who wrote it, but there was priests involved with it, basically saying like, okay, you just took over. You haven't asked any of us about what's going on in our parishes or what the needs of our parishioners are. And you just came down on us with like a very autocratic style, not in the synodal tradition, say, of Pope Francis.
Right.
And yeah, I really feel for I just personally am angered by most of the faithful do not understand and will never comprehend the Latin language. As someone that has taken 4 years of Latin and has deep respect for the language of the church, active participation is hindered wherever Latin is employed. Are you alive? I don't, how could you possibly think that? That's like the most, like if I was thinking of a way to just say the exact opposite of what's going on, I would say that.
Right.
And look at all the, like, I hate to bring this up, but look at all the churches that are dying. Like, there are all these churches that have the boomer masses, green carpets, guitars, drum kits. kumbaya.
Right.
No one, that doesn't challenge anyone. It doesn't serve anyone properly. And it doesn't give the reverence due to our Lord. The reason people are so fired up about this is because they actually love Jesus and they believe that the way in which we worship is important, and to treasure the method in which we do that, that's been handed down from us from centuries. That's why people are Catholic. It's why people, the Catholic faith appeals to people. I do not understand this. Like it's like as if you tried to be as tone deaf as possible and not read the room and not even attempt to serve people and say, you know what, even though you have these legitimate and historical reverence for Catholicism, if you are offended by this, you might leave the church, and we're okay with that.
It's really, there's some really great discussions going on right now on Twitter around this that are, trying to dig into this. Where does this come from? Like, what is this animus? And one commentator was saying, you got to look at the pattern of things in the 60s and 70s. And anyone who was a young child in the 60s and then the 70s and 80s going through Catholic school, what they heard was altar rails were meant to separate the laity from the clergy. Lace and vestments and all of this Latin were instruments to prevent the laity from full participation in the church. And this was drilled into 2 generations of Catholics, basically, that, and these are the people who are now in the diocesan chanceries. This is where Bishop Martin was raised too, that all of these expressions of the faith from before Vatican II, like he says, Latin is something that separates you from God because you don't understand it. And that lie was so inculcated into a segment of American Catholicism that this is sort of hopefully the last gasps of that.
It's gone.
Playing out, because it's a dying proposition. It's binding yourself to that corpse of the spirit of Vatican II, and hopefully will not last beyond this generation.
I can confirm. I mean, like, I'm 27. Everyone I know who's Catholic, sure, I don't know if I'm like
more traditional,
radical or whatever. I don't even go to Latin Mass. Everyone that's serious about their faith, they at least have an appreciation for the Latin Mass, and they all have a ton of kids. Yeah. And I don't know anyone that goes to or enjoys green carpet boomer churches that are legitimately empty. They avoid them, actually, for good reason, I believe. And so I'm not even saying that they're not worthy of ministry or being Catholic either. I wouldn't want them to receive the treatment that my friends that attend traditional Latin Mass I have a reverence for get anyway. I don't, that's Josh, you always bring this up too, but like the way that they are being treated, even if you are not someone that attends the extraordinary form of the Mass, is wrong. And I wouldn't want that treatment to apply to any rite of the church. Mary Night Rite, Eastern Orthodox, it really doesn't matter. Ordinary Rite. Why would any other group be treated like this? Yeah. It's wrong. Like, it's just.
Well, that's why one guy suggested in parishes where a group of the faithful attached to the previous liturgical tradition stably exists, the parish priest should willingly accede to their request to celebrate Holy Mass according to the rite of the 1962 Roman Missal. Sounds like a pretty good idea.
Makes sense.
Oh, that was Pope Benedict in 2007.
Oh, how about that?
What an idea. Yeah.
I do have a lot of hope for Pope Leo. And I don't know, I'm excited that he's American and that he knows English well, and that hopefully he's going to be able to communicate with the ground here, even if, say, leadership at the top is of this bishop's.
I just wish we'd have honest. You talked about with Mitt Romney, authentic versus, because he's so inauthentic, and Trump was, say whatever you want about him. He authentic. Says what he thinks, he's authentic. I wish we'd have these authentic conversations inside the church, peacefully. But it's like the experience of that so many Catholics, I don't think I'm the only one, that in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, just bland, beige Catholicism, watered down. I mean, to the extent that I would, when I was in college, I talked to Protestants about theology. I was like, what? I had no idea what I was talking about because I wasn't properly catechized, and it's like, gosh, I wish I had known better. I'm going to make sure my kids understand the faith better. And I want worship that actually recognizes that this is Jesus and more reverent. And the thing is, there's a segment in the church, and it happens to be, unfortunately, a lot of, in a lot of ecclesiastical offices, where they like have such a disgust. Like, wait, you want to go back in time? Well, no, actually, I'd rather go towards, in the future, towards the fulfillment of Christ when he comes back again. But I feel like it's the other side that's stuck in the 1975.
Right.
I think we should know our faith. We should love our faith, and we should have reverence. And I think we should stop scolding people who like it. Like, what a crazy idea.
Yeah.
It's a crazy idea. I could do a whole episode on that. It's just, I will never understand it. It's just frustrating, like not being listened to, and then it's double frustrated when people say that they're listening.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why the whole synodal thing was so
it's so
irritating.
Yeah.
Like, hey, stop covering.
If you really wanted a church that listened to people who go to church on a regular basis, it's not this felt banner crap.
Take down the Rupnik art. Stop protecting abusers.
Let
people
St. Louis JB music from the 70s.
Right.
No Haagen-Dazs mass.
Okay. This is like, there's probably like three things we could change tomorrow. All my
Little Pony, My Little Pony.
When I was a kid in New Hampshire, we had this. This is just quick anecdote about the beige Catholicism, but we would have summer stock theater. It was really big in New Hampshire, so all the guys would come up from New York. They do like summer stock theater for the rich people on the lakes. It was great. And a couple of summers, our parish had one of the stars from New York City who offered to begin mass with a performance for the people, and so we had what was it? Man of La Mancha was sung. We had Climb Every Mountain at the beginning of Mass. This was like, we got to use show tunes to draw the people in. And it was like this great gift to the people of Plymouth, New Hampshire, that we got to start Mass with this professional from New York City singing deep show tunes. And
it's the Whoopi Goldberg approach.
It's amazing. I'm still Catholic. It is. It's a miracle.
Okay. Twilight Zone now. Got to rip them quick. Josh, what you got?
I was just listening to Dan Schuette's My Little Pony. Sorry. It's such a classic.
Oh, no. Do we have to listen to it too now?
No, we're right straight on this. We can't even do it. And I don't want to. It's going to make me mad.
Okay, so my Twilight Zone, like father, like son, a little thing came out in Jake Tapper's new book.
Oh, gosh.
That, in fact, Beau Biden also shielded the voters about his own health. Now, if you remember, Beau Biden was Attorney General of the state of Delaware. Ultimately, he had, I believe, brain cancer, and ultimately he passed away. Which, if you'll remember, Joe Biden didn't even remember his son, dying or when it happened, anything regarding that. That came out in those HER tapes. But so in 2013. Beau Biden underwent brain surgery to remove a tumor. At the time, the family knew it was a stage 4 glioblastoma. I can't say that word. Likely a death sentence. He started limiting his public appearances, but still, the Bidens didn't publicly disclose anything. Instead, only a few months after the surgery, Beau told a reporter he'd been given a clear bill of health. Beau Biden's doctor told the News Journal the same lie, saying they removed a small lesion from Beau's brain. In reality, it was a tumor larger than the size of a golf ball. He remained Attorney General for all of 2014, secretly flying all over the country for treatments. Now,
they had a playbook.
I would say this. That, I think, is unacceptable. If you're dealing with that kind of a situation, you should step down and let somebody take the office of Attorney General in the state of Delaware. All things being equal, ultimately, being Attorney General of a state that's like the size of a Texas county, not the end of the world. I don't think it's a great idea. However, that is markedly different than being President of the United States. Because, of course, how long has Joe Biden had this diagnosis? We really think he's been, if anything, we know this family was lying all the time.
No,
10 years ago they lied. Why wouldn't they be lying now?
Not here to speak ill of the dead, like pray for the repose of the soul of Beau Biden, but completely unacceptable cover-up. At that point, and then, of course, with the president.
Yeah, look, it's not like the Biden family is poor and he needed the job. Just step down. Like, if you got this kind of a cancer diagnosis, you're probably not going to live. Spend the time with the family or doing something else. And let someone who can serve in that office fulfill the functions that are needed for it. Now, again, This is a family. The Biden family should be regarded as fairly reprehensible for what they've done.
Yep.
I'd agree.
Go down in history.
Erika.
All right. Today's the feast of Joan of Arc, and I have a book recommendation for everyone. I think Emily in the chat already put it in there at the beginning of the show, but Mark Twain's Joan of Arc, one of the, if not the greatest novel in American history. It is bar none. I love it. It is so good. If you haven't read it, Pogo, what are you doing?
I have not.
Get off the show. Go read Joan of Arc.
The best essay by an American.
It's way up there.
You love her.
Way up there. And in fact, Mark Twain himself, I have a couple quotes for you. He said, quote, "I like Joan of Arc best of all my books. It furnished me 7 times the pleasure afforded me by any of the others. 12 years of preparation and 2 years of writing. The others needed no preparation." And this is the guy of like Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn. The others needed no preparation and got none. He just they just came out of him. Blah, 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 blah. So everyone should drop everything this summer and make Joan of Arc one of your poolside readings. It's actually really entertaining too. And Mark Twain, actually, I thought Josh would like this. I got this one for Josh. So in another speech he gave, Mark Twain said, quote, "With Joan of Arc, love of country was more than a mere sentiment. It was a passion. She was the genius of patriotism. She was patriotism embodied, concreted, made flesh and palpable to the touch and visible to the eye." So I don't know if Catholic Vote needs another patron saint, but
love it.
The genius of patriotism in Joan of Arc. And so that's just my Twilight Zone is actually a book rec.
Okay. So what have I been doing instead of reading Joan of Arc by Mark Twain? I was listening to the Michelle Obama podcast. So
this is on brand. No, just kidding.
I'm back in on the Michelle Obama podcast.
Wow. Okay.
I've heard this take go around and I really believe it. Rich and famous people should just stop podcasting, because I think there was a time where people thought Michelle Obama was a really formidable presidential candidate. That time has passed. I cannot believe how bad the Obamas look doing their podcasting after their time in power. But here's a clip.
Have no idea about what women go through, right? We haven't been researched, we haven't been considered, and it affects the way a lot of male lawmakers, a lot of male politicians, a lot of male religious leaders think about the issue of choice as if it's just about the fetus, the baby, but women's reproductive health is about our life. It's about this whole complicated reproductive system that does the least of what it does is produce life. It's a very important thing that it does, but you only produce life if the machine that's producing it, if you want to, whittle us down to a machine, if the machine is functioning in a healthy, streamlined kind of way. But there is no discussion or apparent connection between the two. Because
no discussion.
What? Wait, it's the least thing that I can do is to make a baby?
Oh, no, Josh. No, Erika. It's the least important function of the reproductive system, specifically.
I'm
obviously because that's the embodiment of total contraceptive mindset. Like, your genitals are for recreation, like not recreation. Close. Literally, just play. That's all it's for. So, and I guess if you really, really wanted to, you could actually create new human life, I guess.
Yeah. And can I just tell you what actually shuts down conversation about women's reproductive health? What shuts it down? Let's think about that. How about when we shut down the woman's reproductive system with, the pill, when we shut it down with, abortion, your reproductive system is working. You're pregnant. You have a healthy baby. Let's kill it. That's what shuts down the conversation. Unbelievable. And then they accuse these male religious leaders. Oh, Michelle, I didn't know you were religious. Good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks for lecturing us.
Oh man, I'd just love to do a full breakdown of the psychology of this video. My other personal favorite moment as of recent, because I follow the Michelle Obama podcast. I'm a fan. She said that she sent a whole section complaining about how hard it was to be married to a famous and successful man in Obama.
And she's never benefited from that at all.
No, she said she was annoyed and angry and she make eye contact with another woman when people were trying to shake Obama's hand and like past her.
He
so
was
like they
the
went.
president.
Listen, don't tell my Queen Obama that.
Okay, sorry, Queen.
So sorry, Queen. I gotta say though, she's so close. She is really close. Well, also to say that the female body has never been studied is kind of insane. First off. Second off, it is correct that you want to have a comprehensive treatment towards the reproductive system and women and women's health because they are connected. Therefore, probably not a great idea to just completely stop that, as you said, Erika, with birth control contraception.
100%.
Probably not great. And then also
the idea that giving birth to a child is like an incidental. Oh, I guess, yeah. That also
it's like the least thing.
It's the least important function of the reproductive system, which I'm not a doctor, but kind of insane. Another insane thing.
Not a doctor, but I'm not a biologist, but
I need to spend less time listening to the
Let's
Michelle
get
Obama
Dr. Jill
podcast.
Biden on the phone.
Yeah. Oh, true. Dr. Jill could give her 2 cents.
Maybe help Michelle. No.
I need to spend less time watching the Michelle Obama podcast and more time reading Mark Twain, Joan of Arc. I think it would probably change my livelihood for the better.
Lessons learned from the Twilight Zone. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Man, look, listen.
I can't believe we have to end on that.
I know, but Michelle,
I'm all riled up now.
I'd love to have Michelle Obama on the podcast. If she's listening, come on. I think our next live should be from wherever she's at. And we go deep. We go deep with Michelle.
Let's do it.
I think it'd be sick. Or we could go live from the Gayborhood. My other grand plan is we go to the Gayborhood in Seattle where they assaulted the Christians. We just do an outdoor setup and we just see how long we can hang out in the Gayborhood. It'd be it'd be good content. You can't argue with that.
You have young children, Pogo. I think we might need to get some good security for that one.
Yeah, probably that. Well, then we could parlay it by going to Idaho for the men's festival. What was that, Josh?
No, it was like the hetero festival.
The
hetero pride.
So we could do like we could cut it up. We could do how we fared at the hetero festival, how we fared in the Gayborhood.
That'd be fun. Oh yeah, we could do deep dive. That's a good idea. I should do a deep dive.
Deep dive with Michelle?
Emily, I see the diaper chickens. Yes, that was almost my Twilight Zone, but I had to go positive because it was kind of a dark day. So
I wonder.
Everyone go look up Germany diaper chickens.
Wasn't that was in a church in Germany?
It was a cathedral. It was a bishop's seat in Germany.
Oh, do you think any bishops will write any strongly worded letters about diaper chickens?
They apologized for it.
There was no lace. Okay. There was no lace on the chicken's diapers. So
okay, good. Was the chicken wearing a veil or squawking in Latin?
No veiled chickens, so the chickens could definitely be on the altar.
All right then. Okay. All right.
Guys, we got to stop.
Yeah, we got to stop. We got to end it here. Oh yeah, Erika, you're going to be on the homeschool conference.
I am. Yeah, next Friday, a week from. Oh yeah, homeschooling is awesome. And if you want more support with that, great conference coming up next Friday. It's actually completely free if you go to homeschoolconnections.com. I am the final speaker, and I need everyone to say a prayer that my flight is on time Friday morning so that I get back to this beautiful studio to give the talk Friday evening at the Homeschool Connections conference. It's going to be great lineup, and hope you can all make it.
Someone said that I was reading some of the comments after the Nashville thing, and we were like, oh yeah, Erika's the star, right? Like, no, we didn't even need to think about it like a nanosecond. Like, okay, yeah, Erika's the star.
It's Pogo.
And someone's like, no. And they're like, I would listen to Erika read the encyclopedia in podcast form, and it'd be awesome. And I agree.
I didn't know Todd was in the comments.
What'd you say?
I didn't know Todd was in the comments.
That must have been Todd, or is my mom. Thanks, Mom.
Oh, shout out to your mom. She's a queen.
My fan.
So yeah, wow. We covered a lot there in the last couple of minutes. If you want to leave a review, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Oh, Erika psychoanalyzed Jordan Peterson. So
yeah. That's going to drop.
YouTube.
Make
Go
sure
and
you
subscribe on YouTube. It'll be there. Erika is blossoming into a multimedia star in front of our very eyes. It's amazing. We love it.
Jordan threw me a softball, have to say.
That's true. That's true. Maybe you should go on one of those surrounded interviews. We send Erika out there.
Mm-hmm. I know
if we put Josh in surrounded, she would this is garbage. Can we get someone to Photoshop Josh in a surrounded, man? Oh my gosh.
I don't know what you're talking about.
AI could do that now. Josh on Jubilee. Gosh, I would kill for that. All right. We'll see. I got plenty of ideas. Great show, guys. If you want to help us out, email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. Some questions for us to answer on the show. Join the Champions Club. Best way to support us, catholicvote.org/champions. But pray for us, St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe.